Hare Krishna, everyone. Today we are here with Akrura Prabhu, and many of you know Akrura Prabhu, but those of you who don't know, Akrura Prabhu and I did an audio series called Reality Check. That must have been like when? 15 years?
2009.
2009.
Mm-hmm.
16 years ago. No, 2000, excuse me, 11 years ago.
Yes.
We did 11 years ago because Akrura was in Alachua, and so we went into the studio and we had discovered that both he and I were very interested in how the mind works, psychology, how to become better, be more successful by understanding our own nature and using tools and strategies to help us become better that we've learned, some of which we learned both in the secular world, but we saw them more as kind of sattva guna-ish attitudes, ways of thinking. So we did that series. And then Akrura was my first coach. So when he was talking to me, I was trying to, what I'm doing now, whoa, uh-oh. Hare Krishna. How did that happen? Oh, tried to sign me out. Did you hit anything by accident?
No, I didn't. I just put a gallery view so that it's
Yeah.
big. Our screens are bigger on the screen.
Anyway, hopefully we won't have a problem. It says it's been recording for 17 minutes. No, that's not true. So Akrura was coaching me, and I was just starting to develop workshops and seminars. I wanted to do it full time. And Akrura said, "Well, how's it going?" And I told him all the obstacles, and he said, "Well, don't tell me the obstacles, just tell me something you can do to make it happen." And that was such a simple instruction. But I found that with most people starting, that's the perfect instruction. That's what they need because they're focused on what they can't do. So you said, well, he said, this is exactly what you said. I don't want to hear what you can't do. I want to hear what you can do. So tell me something you can do. I was forced to think of something I could do. And actually what happened was every day I thought of what I could do, even though it was little. And he got me over the hump of thinking, well, you know, you have to do everything in a week. So gradually, that's what got me going. And then Akrura, you probably know that you were coaching me a few times and like, what did you do? How's it going? So I did a little of this. But then you might have realized at a certain point you didn't have to coach me because I was neglecting everything else in my life and just doing this. It had that one instruction, just do something, had built up momentum. Mm-hmm. So we've been in touch off and on. And then recently we were talking and we thought, and I had already thought before we were talking, why don't we do another version of what we did before, like the 2020 version. So we're 11 years more realized now than we were then. And there's new topics we want to talk about. And so Akrura Prabhu said, I would like to talk about self-talk, you know, how you talk to yourself and how that affects you. And I said, oh, that's good because we did a workshop in Mayapur about your relationship with yourself. So then we kind of created an umbrella, your relationship with yourself. And this particular session will focus more on self-talk, but then we can have other sessions that focus on other topics. So that's the introduction. Akrura is a coach, Gita coaching, and now it's what Gita Seva, went to Gita coaching. And he studied coaching with some of the best coaches in the world. He studied leadership. He's done a lot of work in that area. And he's coaching some of my disciples now. He's coached some in the past. He coaches many devotees. And he's an amazing Brahmin. He does all this coaching and he does it for free. And as we were just getting ready, we were having problems because his computer's not working properly and his phone's not working properly. And I said, why don't you fix it? Don't you have any money? And he said, whenever you ask the question, do you have any money? You always know the answer in advance. It's no. And I said, well, we have to do something to help him. So I'm publicly announcing it. Any of you want to help Akura? I want to help Akura. I think we should get you a new phone. And I think we should get you a microphone.
Thank you so much.
And I think, so if any of you can help, all right, you know, phones are expensive, but you can pay, you can get a phone and pay a little bit every month. And we can send him that money. So if any of you can help, just, you can make a donation to me. A lot of you know me, mahatmadas.com. Just go to donate and we'll go to PayPal, but just tell me what the money's for. And then we can direct that money and then we can arrange to help him because he gives a lot of classes and he should look beautiful like me. Right now he has his computer, it's not working right. It only works in one area. And he's just got little headphones on for his mic. So we want to help him that way. Okay, so mahatmadas.com, hit the donate button, PayPal or however you want to do it, and just let us know. And we'll raise some funds to help him. Akura is amazing. He does so much service for free. That's why he doesn't have any money. So, and if Akura, any of you are getting coaching from him, please donate something to help him. So I'm going to act, I feel like in this, I should act as a interviewee, no. He's the interviewee, I'll be the interviewer. Of course, I will speak, but a lot of people get to hear me a lot, and I think it would be good to hear Akura Prabhu. So to start with, this was your idea. You came up with the idea for this. So can you tell us why, what's inspiring you? What are you thinking about? Why you wanted to talk about this?
First, I want to say that we were asking people for something before we have given anything.
You've already given like 20 years of coaching to so many people.
But in this session, we didn't give anything. Usually at the end.
If you like what you hear in this session, at the end, you can help Akura with a donation.
Yes, that's better. I like that.
No, but I already know you're going to like what you hear, so anyway, to satisfy Akura, he's a Brahmin, so he wants to give value before you give him anything. Okay, I accept that.
Yeah. So thank you for your question. This is a wonderful question. The reason I have chosen this dialogue, and it's a great honor and pleasure to talk with you about it, because I think you also think about it and teach about it a lot. And I believe you give courses also in relation to this. So in coaching, one of the main issues that we face with devotees is actually their internal dialogue, how they talk to themselves. And Bhaktivedanta Maharaj also in his books, he has mentioned, I did the research in his books because his books are in the database. And it's
Whose books?
Bhaktivedanta Maharaj.
Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, okay.
Yeah, they're in the database, so it's easy to find out what he has said about this internal dialogue. And I have done different classes, talks, seminars on this, and when working with individual devotees, many of them have actually negative inner dialogue. And this is why I have chosen this to speak with you.
So it's because of your experience, because you've seen it so often.
Yes.
You really are. That also happens to me. Many of the things that I teach, it's because of the coaching I do, that I see the problem sometimes is epidemic. And even with the people who don't think they have the problem, to some degree they have it in certain situations, right?
Yes, exactly. I have been working on this myself in my own life for probably consciously for about 20 years. That what happened is that a very famous coach, Marshall Goldsmith, he's an executive coach, and he's, according to some institutions, #1 leadership thinker in the world. So I met him a couple of times in London, and once he told me, he said, Akrura, you are a spiritual person. Why do you sound so negative? I sound negative. Come on, why do you say that? He says, yes, this is my impression. And then I started to observe how I speak and also how I think and how I talk to myself, and started consciously working on this. And even today, I sometimes catch myself having this negative self-talk, but from being, I don't know, in some negative mood for 3 hours, I have boiled it down to 3 minutes.
Well, I want to stop here. Have you, because as devotees, we have a lot of negative things to say about non-devotees,
Yeah.
about the material world, about politicians, scientists. Do you think that has an effect, or what you're talking about is entirely different? It's a personality trait. It's based on your past history, your beliefs, or do you think it's a combination of both? That coming into Krishna consciousness, if you're negative, there's a lot of things to bounce off that are negative.
Yeah, it's both. I would say it's both.
So you're saying you didn't realize how negative you were until he said that.
Yeah, because he hears me on the phone, we met, and then he just made me aware. And this really got me going. I said, I'm going to work like an ass on this, and this will not bug me anymore. And now when people complain to me about it, I know how it looks like. And so for me, negative internal dialogue is not so much related to other people, like criticizing, I don't know, materialistic people or other devotees, but I get on my own case and I become negative about myself. For example, I used to get so upset when I forget something that is important. Like, for example, I travel for half an hour on a train to Soho in London to serve whole day, and I forget my glasses. And my glasses are the key tool, because I will look at a computer and I have to see the screen. And I used to beat myself up so much. And then I started to say, okay, if you forget, just go back and you can stay longer later. I mean, do your 8 hours, or just borrow from someone or come closer to the screen, but don't be so negative and don't beat yourself up. And it worked. It helped me.
Why do you think you were like that? Is this the way you were born? Is this the way it became that way because of how your parents treated you, how your temple president treated you, or combination?
No, it's not because of others. It's just a habit. I didn't care what people tell. I didn't care so much if people criticize me, like my parents or teachers. It's just something about my own expectations of myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
okay, so could you, I think it's clear, but could you just give a definition of self-talk, just so everybody's on the same page?
What's happening in your head, you can call it thinking also. But there is always some conversation, or people say it's a story or it's a tape. What is your story, or what is your tape that always plays in your head? And the amazing thing is that we can actually take charge of this. When you become aware, of this, then you see that you have a choice. You can choose what you think, you can choose what you feel, and you can choose what you desire.
Okay. So the first point is awareness, obviously, because you can't solve a problem you're not aware of. So you're asking people to become aware. You became aware because someone told you. So for the average person, what would you suggest is the best way to become aware of the negative self-talk? And number two, the effects it's having. Because I think for some people, they're good at neglecting. They hear it, but it doesn't affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So to be aware of the negative self-talk and to be aware of how it's being affected. And then later we can talk about how, as you're saying now, how to change it.
Mm.
So number one, how to become aware.
It helps if we understand we are not the mind, and that we can observe the functions of the mind, like thinking, feeling, and willing. And in some coaching techniques, they ask you, like, for example, if I coach you and I say, let us switch seats. And then I ask you to take my role as a coach, and you are now a coach of the person in front of you, and that's you. But I'm taking your seat and I'm pretending I'm you. So now you are just 1 meter away from me, and you can be observing more or less objectively what this guy is thinking, what this guy is feeling, and what he wants. And so then I ask you, so what do you see here? And you can say, well, I see he's a little bit confused, or he has this negative inner dialogue and he doesn't have to have it. So just physical distance and just taking the role of someone else, some objective observer, can help you actually to observe your mind.
Yes, I've used that technique. I know you do that. I've used that in many of my workshops, and we just used it last week on a devotee. I told him to write down all his fears, give those fears to, he was at his mother's house, give those fears to his mother, and she'll read it as if it's his, and then he'll address it. And he said he had like major breakthroughs, like maybe bigger than ever. And I've always seen exactly what you're saying. We don't have objectivity. That creates objectivity, because now it's like another person's problems. What about also writing down all the negative attitudes you have? Like, just write them down so you see them in front of you. This is my negative tendencies. When this happens, I always say something negative, or when I'm in this situation, I always think something negative. Would that help?
Oh, writing down is a great improvement tool, and it's really undermined and underused. I always recommend it. This is a powerful way to increase awareness of anything that is happening within us.
Okay. Yes. So we have two exercises right away. They can write down their negative, or just, but like, they can write it down. They can do an exercise with another person. But like for myself, I have the nature that if someone says, become aware of something, it's like all of a sudden, you know, you buy the blue Toyota and you see the blue Toyotas everywhere and you never saw them before. It's like, you know, because perception is very selective. So I always find that when I'm made aware of through knowledge that this is actually what's going on and it doesn't have to happen, I just become aware, oh, this is how I'm thinking in this moment. And I think when we talk more about the effects of that thinking, it's going to make devotees more aware, because when they realize how bad it is for them, they're going to want to be able to interfere with that thinking.
Yeah.
So, anything else to gain objectivity that you would suggest, or that's enough?
I want to share something extremely valuable that happened in Spain when there was a ISKCON European Communications meeting. And I knew one devotee for years, and he was a manager in England, and he was even accused of different things. So, and I would never expect from him that he will go into therapy, to do therapy. So I met first his wife in the pizzeria, and I said, "How is your husband?" And she said, "Oh, he's going to go into therapy, and he was just finishing his studies." And I had no idea that he is studying for 4 years. He's a good public speaker. He's a manager. He communicates with people, but I didn't know he's so much interested in one-to-one, and it was a very pleasant surprise. So then I asked him, so what kind of therapy do you do, and how do you help people? And he said something like transpersonal, I can't remember, transpersonal. He said, this therapy is the most close to us, to Krishna consciousness, to the understanding of the soul. That's why I have chosen it. I said, wow, that sounds great. Tell me more about it. And so what is the essence of this approach? And he said, the way that the therapist treats the patient becomes actually the way that the patient starts to treat himself.
Wow.
So if your therapist or a coach is always giving you positive messages about yourself, then gradually you start to think like this about yourself, and you start to support yourself, encourage yourself, coach yourself. And this is amazing. I mean, I knew this before, but he outlined it so clearly by describing what he's doing that I was so grateful. I mean, I wanted to buy him something or whatever. I was so grateful that I had this and I saved it. It's also in my devotee success partnership guide that I gave you. It's there also, this sentence. And of course, I want to mention devotee success partnership because this is a situation where you can get support and positive messages from your devotee success partner. Even
I'm writing that down.
Yeah,
That's
even if you don't have a coach, you can get amazing, you can get so much support from your devotee success partner, and what they see in you. And when I see things in people, it's not like rah rah, you are great and you are awesome and things like this. No, I tell them very specifically what good qualities and skills I see in them, and they cannot argue with this because it's true. I have evidence. So they
want to go back a second? You're talking about something they may not know, where two devotees come together and they coach one another.
Yes. Yeah.
We have, if you're interested in that document, you can write myself or Akura. We can send it to you. Ways that you can do this. So instead of having, an official coach who's trained, you work together and help one another. And there's guidelines how you can do that.
And you don't need expensive training in coaching, in counseling. I give you a structure, and you just need a desire to help the other devotee in the best possible way. And Krishna will also give you intelligence, what questions to ask them. But actually, I give you in these structures, you don't even have to think about, you just have steps of the structure. You just have to be present and sincerely want this devotee to succeed and to be happy and to be empowered. And they will think for themselves. You don't have to tell them a lot. You just have to listen and just be there and help them to develop this amazing attitude towards themselves, towards their mind.
Okay, so I have a point that I think is very important.
Yes.
Some people by nature are more negative, some by nature are kind of neutral, some are by nature more positive. For whatever reason, either they were born that way or they became that way. If a person is negative and they're around people who are negative, it seems from my experience, that's the worst possible thing for them. They need to be around people who are positive, because all the negative people do is confirm what they're already thinking, and it provides no contrast. So you agree with that? That if you're a negative thinker, don't be around negative people. It's going to make it worse.
Yes. Association is everything. Therefore, Devotee Success Partnership provides this association in a powerful and conscious way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
I want to tell you one anecdote.
Okay.
So I used to live in England. Now I'm traveling. And I was always, not always, but at least since the year 2000, officially I was a coach. And one devotee, he once introduced me as a coach to someone, and I said, "Really? You think I'm a coach?" And since then I started introducing myself to others also. So anyway, my wife, she knew that, I do coaching, and she sometimes even sends me people. So, but sometimes, we have a conflict, and she got upset with me, and she said, "Oh, you are Mr. Positive. Why are you so negative?" And I applied the technique of Marshall Goldsmith. He has an amazing technique. He is punishing his clients if they say but, no, or however. When she gives them advice, they're not allowed to argue. And if they argue, they have to give $20 to the charity for every but, no, or however.
That's great.
So he raised millions of dollars by this from his rich clients who also
do
pay
that with
him.
you should do that with your clients. Then you could buy a new computer in probably the first session.
No, so I said to my wife, next time if I'm negative, I will give you 10 pounds. I mean, at that time, 10 pounds was something, the British pounds. And I paid only once. And also sometimes devotees ask me how to control anger. I tell them every time you get angry, you give 50 pounds to the temple or to the BBT. And then, you know, they will think twice before because it doesn't pay off to get angry. And I just used it myself and it worked. I have never ever became negative with my wife.
So it was a way to become aware. It was a way to become aware.
Yes, yes. And it's good. One powerful self-development tool that I'm using very much, I learned it from SEAL, Marines, commandos. Anytime they make a mistake, they have to do push-ups.
Like 100 push-ups or something?
I don't know how many, but and the trainer is standing until they finish. Or every time they fail some task, they are too slow in running, but running with the weight, not just running. So they have to do push-ups. And I thought, oh, this is good. If I don't fulfill my goal or my commitment or my promise to myself, I have to have a compensation. And I'm doing this now every day with me, and I feel so happy because I feel like peaceful that I'm showing Krishna that I'm serious. For example, if I don't eat until I finish my rounds. This helps me a lot because I focus to finish job.
You use your appetite to empower you.
Yeah, because after the morning program, you are very hungry and tired. So this is, and with our success partnership, I always recommend to my success partner, if you want to discipline yourself, always have a compensation if you don't follow your goal, if you don't fulfill your goal. First of all, they will feel bad if they report to me that they are failing. And I also, feel bad if I report to them that I'm failing. But then on top of it, you can have some kind of compensation. Okay, what you're gonna do to show Krishna you are serious to correct it next time. And it works very well for me at least, and for some devotees I'm doing partnership with.
100 push-ups. I want to get past 10 though.
No, not 100 push-ups. For example,
How many you do?
Don't eat before you finish your rounds, even if you have to finish them at 10 p.m.
Okay.
Because Prabhupada said, there was a heavy conversation with Prabhupada. He said, if you don't finish in one day, next day, don't eat, don't sleep, first finish your rounds.
Yes. Very good. Okay, I like that. But it takes discipline to create the discipline of compensation. So if someone's not disciplined, they won't they'll be afraid to discipline themselves.
They have to start somewhere.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. Okay, so let's talk about the ramifications of both positive self-talk and negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
How is it affecting someone? Because someone might think, well, I just ignore it, it doesn't affect me. Or I don't need positive self-talk to be enthusiastic. So what's your understanding or realization of how it's affecting us?
I don't know about clinical depression, but I think most bad feelings, including depression, are the result of the bad habit of a negative self-talk. So feeling bad about anything or about anyone is a result of a negative self-talk. So like they say, I think this very famous guy, he's, I think, the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman. He said, he speaks about your explanatory style. That means how you interpret what happens to you, how you interpret people's behavior, how you interpret anything that happens in your life, and you can actually choose how you interpret. everything. You can
And
see.
then that affects you. Same event affects you differently based on your interpretation.
Yeah. So and it boils down to how you talk to yourself about what happens.
Yeah,
And
the
for
story.
many people, this is completely unconscious.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just,
in our forgiveness workshop, it's totally about changing the story,
yes, exactly.
because it's so simple. You come in and your story is, this person hurt me. You come out and you have a different story.
Mhm.
And therefore your resentment or your forgiveness is related to your story.
Yeah.
Change the story, it becomes a story of forgiveness. The
Mhm.
old story is the story of resentment. And it sounds so simple, but when you analyze it, that's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
There's a process to do that.
Mhm. You have developed tools for this, I believe, many tools. But
Can
just,
you give
yes.
some examples of negative self-talk and positive self-talk?
Uh,
I'm so stupid. I never do anything right. That kind of stuff.
I'm thinking about a specific example that I have heard recently. I mean, I work with the Mataji, initiated Mataji, who had a lot of uh, negative messages from her parents. Her mother was always tell her that she's useless and she will never be successful, and it still rings in her head. So now we are working on turning this, transforming this, and she's practicing. She's practicing to catch herself, to become aware, and then just not agree to have this negative self-talk, to change it. So her negative self-talk is that I'm good for nothing and I will never be successful, something like this. And it's still a very strong impression, she tells me. But now she started practicing and she feels better and better. And to me, one of the greatest success secrets is daily practice. This, nothing can replace this. If you see anybody that has anything easy, this is only because they have worked hard in the past. This is what I believe.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about this female devotee, Vaishnavi, that you're speaking about,
Mhm.
because I've dealt with many in similar situations. And the most severe cases I dealt with were exactly like this. The parents had told them, either you'll amount to nothing, worse, in some cases, that you were born by accident, you weren't wanted. And growing up, they would complain, why do basically like, why do you have to exist? You've ruined our life. You can imagine how difficult that is. And just or the mild one, why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like the one next door? And then interestingly, there's another one. I don't know if you've heard this one before, where the parents are not negative, but it's taken as negative. Like, you're complimenting them that you're so intelligent, I know you could be this. And they take it, oh, you're criticizing me that I'm not this.
Oh,
So it's like a predisposition to being negative. So what I wanted to say is, and this is important for everyone to know, and this is why she's had so much trouble, is this is how beliefs are developed. You hear something repetitively, especially when you're young. Did you know that up to the age of six, your mind is totally programmed by everything? Did you know that? That you're in the state you go into hypnosis so they can put in suggestions into the subconscious, whatever it's called, the theta or the alpha, I forget. You're in that state till the age of 6. So everything you learn, all your experiences are programming your subconscious. Everything. There's no, so, but the subconscious program is what plays out, and it's what makes the conscious program. So when you've been hearing, you're bad, you're worthless, you'll never be successful, it's become a belief. It's not just something you've heard. It's become a belief which is determining how you think. And so when you say practice over and over developing that habit. What I've studied beliefs quite deeply, and one of the things that I've learned is if you practice living differently, it will change the belief. So I live in such a way that I don't feel I'm useless, that I don't feel I'll be successful. And so I'm planning to be successful. I'm planning to contribute, to help, to make a difference in the world, make a difference in our movement, make a difference in my own life. And by doing that, you start to develop the belief that I am of value. That's one way. That's one of the easiest ways I've found. So I think it's important for everyone to know that it's not just you heard these negative things. It's not that the negative self-talk is just coming below the surface as a belief that's generating the thoughts. And we need to change that belief by being around positive people, as you said, reframing how you think, and then acting according to those positive concepts. And then they'll again replace the negative ones. And then, like you said, the habit, which is so interesting, is when the belief is different, when the negative becomes positive, automatically you act positively. Automatically your stories are positive. So it's like if it's going to be automatic, might as well be automatically better than automatically worse. But I want to just say one other thing, because we were talking about ISKCON, and there's a lot of negativity in ISKCON. And if you ever see someone that's extremely negative, it's not because of what's happening in ISKCON, it's because of them. We have to know that.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in the same movement. I see all the negative things you see. She sees all the negative things you see. Somebody is disgusted, somebody has left, somebody is optimistic, somebody's trying to improve it. So, we can't just blame it on the situation. We have to understand it's how we're processing everything. And if we're too negative, we'll talk ourselves right out of Krishna consciousness. We'll talk ourselves out of ISKCON first, but who knows where else we'll talk ourselves out of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important to recognize, because otherwise people say, no, it's because of this, that's why I'm negative. The negative situation. It makes sense, but you have to interact with it to be negative. You could see that same situation and go, let's do something. We got to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
I was just saying this morning in class, imagine you went back to Godhead and Prabhupada said to you, you saw all these problems in ISKCON, but you left. Why didn't you do something to solve those problems? How would you feel?
Exactly.
Like, what a moment, right?
Mm.
No, Prabhupada, but it was all messed up and, I couldn't deal with it. No one would listen to me. What's Prabhupada going to say? He said, you should have done something, anything.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah.
So there is, yes?
Go ahead.
There is so many things we can do to change this self-sabotage. Negative inner dialogue is self-sabotage. It's just against ourselves. And we have scriptures. We have even specific verses that we can use to change this negative inner dialogue. We can use Shastra Jnana Chakshusha or Shastra Chakshu, seeing through the eyes of the scriptures. So sometimes I was coaching devotees, like when I was in Peru some years ago, I felt like Jesus, because people would come like in flocks. I mean, so many devotees came for coaching. It seems like they just waited for someone to come to listen to them, to speak to them, to look here to their problems. And I would have so many sessions every day. And when I get tired, I always have Bhagavad Gita on the table, because my coaching is called Gita coaching. and sometimes I was so tired that I would just say, they would tell me their problem, they cannot forgive someone or this and that. And I would say, just take the Gita and put it on your ear and tell me what you hear. And it's amazing. It's amazing. They would they would say amazing things, like they would say, I understand, I'm in Maya. Something like that. And sometimes also we randomly open the Gita and point randomly, and this sentence or this paragraph is very relevant to what they want to speak about.
Wow.
So
a new coaching method.
Yeah,
Put your ear on the Gita and see what you hear. Wow.
yes. So there is so there.
You know, there's another method. It's the same one you're using when the other person tells you, but instead of you playing the coach, you play Krishna. Okay, so if you were talking to Krishna right now, what do you think he would tell you? It's quite amazing. We do that in japa, we do that in forgiveness, and it's for many devotees that's the point, the major shift point.
Oh, that's great.
Because when there's a forgiveness issue, they're always saying, they're always hearing Krishna saying, I'm trying to teach you something. I'm trying to teach you forgiveness. I'm trying to teach you compassion. And, if I didn't put this person in your life to cause you trouble, how would you know what forgiveness is? It starts to become obvious, but only when they take the role of Krishna. Because when they take the role of Krishna, they can't see it from their Rajasic point of view. So it works wonders. And so I would recommend that to anybody when you're having trouble. Just imagine you're Krishna talking to you. What would he say? And you'll get some. And then when we share, we say, well, what did Krishna say? We want to hear what Krishna said. And we get all this sharing, and it's obvious that was coming from Krishna.
Well, this is also Shastra Chakshu. This is Shastric. And it's Vedic, and it's a powerful spiritual coaching, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so you were going to say something when I interrupted you?
I was speaking about Shastric tools, and one of them is Bhagavad Gita 17:15, Anudvega Karavakyam, Satyam Priyam Hitam Chayat, Swadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva, Vanmayam Tapa Uchate. The 17th chapter describes austerity in the mode of goodness, and one of the austerities is austerity of speech. And this verse can be applied to inner dialogue also.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. So you can check if your words are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to yourself, and if there is always content from the Vedic literature in your mind. So if you practice this, you can fail. This is just, it will transform your internal dialogue.
You know what they say, be careful what you say to yourself because you're listening. So we did a course in Mayapur this February, and it was called Your Three Relationships: relationship with yourself, with others, and with Krishna. And we never even got to others and Krishna because, of course, I think it was 4.5 days, 8 hours a day. And we only made it maybe a third of the way through, if even a third. It was much longer than I thought. It was the first time I taught it. And the general response that we got was that I've never done a course about my relationship with myself. It's always with God, with Guru, with other devotees, with wife, with husband. And everyone naturally realized how I treat myself is how I treat others.
Wow.
So, if I'm down on myself, I tend to be down on others. If I'm self-critical, I tend to be critical of others. If I'm nice to myself, I tend to be nice. So I think that's extremely important. What you just said confirms that be nice to yourself. Okay, do the austerity of speech on yourself. Then you'll definitely do it on others. And I would also say, don't you think it's a paradox if let's say I'm very nice to you, but in my private life, I'm berating myself? It seems to be a paradox, artificial. Something's wrong with that. So we realize, they say, get your house together before you do anything else. Get your internal house together. And then you'll show up better for others. And so, like the person who's always condemning everyone else, probably they're condemning themselves also. If they're judging everyone else, probably they're judging themselves also too much. Judge yourself is okay, but too much is a problem.
To me, healthy approach, a healthy way to see yourself, to deal with yourself, is you deal with yourself as if your coach would deal with yourself. Because your coach sees you always in terms of your potential, not in terms of your present performance or behavior.
Okay, this is really good. This is really important.
So he always sees you as not bunch of problems, but bunch of potential. And so coach would not be too lenient, but he would also not be too strict. He would be somewhere in the middle, a little bit on the side of strictness is okay, because we always have to push ourselves a little bit because we are not on the level of Raganuga Bhakti. So, and, but it's a very healthy way to talk to yourself. You can always ask yourself, what would my coach do? Of course, perfect is what would Prabhupada tell me, or what would Krishna? This is also perfect. I love it. And I'm going to check your course on a relationship with yourself. Some devotees will send it to me.
It's on my website. All the recordings are there and the workbook is there.
From which year is this?
This is February this year.
Oh, I'll check it out. So
February 2020.
Yeah.
There was a retreat the year before, which also had a lot of internal dialogue.
I find this so important. If you sort out this one thing, I mean, you can really take off.
Yeah. You know, I heard a lady. She was coming to celebrate her teacher. It was like a Vyas Puja. My wife said it to me. It was like a Vyas Puja, but it was for Tony Robbins. My wife had studied coaching with Tony Robbins, and she got this. And it was his 60th birthday, and they were. It was. She said, "This was like a very classy Vyas Puja," and there were a lot of people there who were very successful, and they had taken his course when they were younger. And I think he's the master of these like one-liners that can make a huge difference. Like just instead of thinking this way, you think this way, and then, oh, everything changes. Like you're saying, like you just said, it can make a huge difference. So this one lady said she was having a young woman, she was going nowhere. She was running into problems. And then Tony said, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So to you, you get knocked down. For you, you go forward. And the point is, we also teach that, Krishna creates situations so you can grow. But refining it into one mantra, it's not happening to you, happening for you, resonated with her. And that was one thing she said, attributed to this, said that one thing changed everything. So sometimes it's one little thing. You go, oh, I'm thinking this way, or oh, my attitude is this way, needs to be this way. And once it's changed, then you realize, oh, that's why I wasn't successful, or that's why I couldn't do this. And now I couldn't imagine myself doing this, but now I started imagining myself doing this, and I was able to do it. Right? Like I'm a musician, but I was playing piano only for a music class. We were taking a music class, and we had to do things on the piano. They never taught us piano, but it was just theory. It's so, I kind of played it a little bit, but I never played it. And then I played harmonium, which was quite easy because it's one hand. And as if you're a musician, you don't, if you've played other instruments, then generally you don't really need lessons. You just play the harmonium. So my daughter started playing piano, and then in the 80s, MIDI came out and we had keyboards. And I look at the keyboard and I think, I only know how to play with my right hand. And I'd see, people playing, and I was like, I can't play like that. It's not possible. And I realized that it's weird to play with my left hand because but I type with my left hand, I play guitar with my left. It's like, it doesn't make any sense, right? I'm typing with my left hand, but I can't play keyboards I'm playing guitar. So it's something so stupid that can, this is a mundane example, of course, but it can prevent you. I could never chant good japa. I could never be a devotee like that. And once you imagine that you can be, that's when you start to be. And people say, is it that simple? And the answer is, believe it or not, it is that simple, isn't it? It's just like once you can, could you ever imagine being rich? And you'd say, no, I could never imagine. Yeah, I will make a prediction. You will never be rich. I will guarantee that in writing. And if you ever become rich, I'll give you $100,000 because I know you never will be because you can't imagine. You may not want to be, that's another thing, okay? it's just that, but you can, money, whatever it is. If you can't imagine it, it's unlikely you're ever going to do it. You have to be able to imagine it to do it. So part of that negative self-talk is I could never imagine myself doing this. And then it goes into devotional service. I can never imagine myself getting up early, reading every day, chanting good rounds. And what's the result? I get up late, I don't read, I don't chant good rounds. And when you understand it could be that simple, it's like the same thing with that girl. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. Change your life with one sentence. So I think that's super important.
Mm-hmm. Well, what we can do in coaching, I'm just getting an idea I always try to get new ideas for tools to help devotees succeed, is that let's identify your negative one-liners and make a list.
I like that. Your negative one-liners.
Your demotivational one-liners.
And then we'll replace them with positive one-liners?
Yeah. I mean, they can be creative. I don't want to give them...
Wait. Everyone, your assignment at the end of this class is write down your negative one-liners. That's your assignment. And then you're going to give the next step, right?
The next step is that I should not do it for you. You should transform your negative one-liners in positive one-liners with your own words.
Yeah.
It will be more powerful than if I give you.
I could never chant good rounds to I'm working on improving my japa, or someday I'm going to chant Shuddhanam, something like that. That would be more positive.
Yes.
I can never chant good rounds to one day I'll be chanting Shuddhanam. And you won't believe this, but that one thing can actually transform your japa. Believe it or not. That someday I'll be, because now you're going to try to chant Shuddhanam, whereas before you weren't because you thought you couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I have another thing that I was getting training in. I always get training in professional tools, and I somehow convinced these professionals to let me go for free on their expensive seminars. I tell them I'm not a businessman, I will just be helping people, and many of them are nice people, and they let me. So I have been to 2 training courses. It's the system of coaching is non-directed coaching, and it's called Time to Think. Basically, it's helping people to think, not to give them advice or tools or tips, but help them to think for themselves and to figure out everything themselves. But you're listening attentively, and you're asking them a couple of questions that help better thinking. So there, in this system, we work with assumptions. So what are you assuming that is stopping you from achieving your goal? Oh, and then they say, well, I'm assuming I'm incapable. It's not impossible. Nobody will. Mm-hmm. What are you assuming from stopping you from giving class? Some people are reluctant to give class. And they say, well, nobody will listen to me. I don't know enough. So many things about it. So many reasons. And then I say, then how to turn this around is what I teach is, if you would know that people would be interested, that you can prepare nicely, that you can, that your talk will be attractive, how would you feel and how would you prepare? And they say, oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that would be a different story. I could do it actually. So you turn, this is called a negative limiting assumption. You turn it into a positive liberating assumption through creating these questions, and it makes a huge difference. And then people make a action plan and they set a goal.
Can you give another example? Can you give another example of a negative to a positive? Mm-hmm. Using this style?
Yeah. I just had a session myself. Everything is real. It's not invented. If I get accepted in Sabha, I would like to present about Vani culture, to somehow develop Vani culture more powerfully in ISKCON. So my assumption were, well, who will listen to me? Who am I? You know, they don't understand the value, because I was having 30-hour interview with Vishnumurti Prabhu about Vanipedia and about the value of Vani, and Vani is the honey. And so they don't know actually what kind of thinking is behind it. There is this like 20 pages manifesto of Vanipedia where he explains everything, the whole vision. So they haven't read that. So, and how will I get them to read this and understand its value? It will be impossible, and they don't have time. So I had so many assumptions. And then my coach said, okay, so if you would knew that this would be possible, how would you prepare for your presentation? And I said, wow, actually, I already know a couple of people who would like the idea on the Sabha. And if they like it, then there is more of us who like the idea, so we can promote this culture. And I started to get a hope, and I still have a hope that it's possible to inspire people to work on developing Vani culture. I mean, or putting more Prabhupada in the center by putting his instructions on specific things in the center. And I become so enthusiastic. And now if I'm voted in, then I'm going to do it. And I have no...
I want to check right now while we're talking to see if you've been voted in. Do you know when the date is?
Check if it's August 4th, I think, or 6th.
Oh, August 4th. We won't know till the 4th.
Yeah. But it's just...
I was thinking of checking while we talk.
I'm very enthusiastic now about it. I have just eliminated my negative assumption.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Success partnerships helps a lot to practice this, because if you are negative during the week and you meet me, I'm going to get on your case. I'm going to be very negative about your being negative. And you will feel very bad. And me too also. And you know what happens when my alarm clock rings? What I think now, because I have a success partner whom I report about my getting up, I'm thinking, my God, I'm going to feel so embarrassed to report that I failed again. And I get up. So.
Yeah, there's a system I learned. Well, I want to go back. I want to just go back like a minute. And so what you were saying is, it's kind of like, what if this doesn't work? And then there's a whole scenario. And so why should I try? And etc. And then well, what if it does work? So it's that simple, right? Going from, well, what if this doesn't work, which is the pessimist, the negative person, or it's never going to work, to, well, what if it did work? What if it could be done? How would you think? How would you feel? It's that simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin Seligman, the father of modern positive psychology, he speaks about learned helplessness. So they have this experiment with an elephant who is tied to a strong pillar, and he cannot move. Then they tied him to a stick, and he still feels that he cannot move. So learned helplessness, this is something that many human beings do. This is something that many devotees do.
Prabhupada gave that example with a bull, I think. You know that?
No, what was that?
And Prabhupada gave the same example. The baby bull is going around, and when he's older, maybe he gives it with the elephant, maybe he gives the exact same example, the animal, or, you know, you cage him in and you take the cage down and he won't go outside because his whole life he's been caged. That is, it's a powerful example, and it's just a reality of human psychology. But once we know it, then we can deal with it. We can go further. Then you were just saying something when I interrupted you, and I wanted to comment on. And you were about your partner. And so one of the systems I learned was it was a simple system where you would ask your partner, every day I want you to call me at such and such a time, and I want you to ask me these 5 questions, and you would give the question, like, you know, in your example, did you get up at 4 o'clock? Did you chant your rounds before breakfast? Did you read at least 1 hour of Prabhupada's books? You know, these questions. And the total conversation takes about 10 seconds because you just say yes or no. What's 5 questions? Did you, that's it, you know, so realistically, probably like a 45-second conversation. He reads a question, you say yes or no. 5 questions, whatever the number is. That's it. Okay, good night, thank you. And the man who was doing this said for 3 months, he was saying no to all the questions. And after 3 months, he said, this is disgusting. I'm sick of saying, I don't want to say no anymore.
Yeah.
Because these are the things I want to do. But it took him 3 months of saying no to finally do it. And he said that simple exercise where, why am I saying no to the very things I want to say yes to?
Oh, yeah.
This is supposed to be yes. That I'm giving him the questions for which I want to say yes, and I'm saying no. And he got totally fed up with it and started doing everything. So that simple exercise, that's a very simple exercise that anybody could do with anybody. If you want to do something, just have someone call. Did you exercise today? Yes, no. Okay, talk to you tomorrow. That's it. And you know he's going to call at 8 o'clock and it's 7:30. And if you don't exercise in the next half hour, you're going to say no. And you're not going to explain it. Well, I had to do this and too much work at school. You just say no. And you live with it. And there's one more thing I was just experiencing a lot lately. Being back in Alachua has given me more time to catch up. And so I have a lot of things to do. Some things are nice to do. Some things are not so relishable for me. And I was thinking, all the things we don't want to do that we put off, it just becomes like a burden because they don't go away. And in the back of your mind, you know you have to do it. And once you just get it off what I say, I have my I don't want to do list. I have my no time to do list. I have a few other lists. I don't want to do list, you know, like all this. And so I hate to do list. And when you pull something off, I hate to do list and you do it, it's one less burden. You don't, you know, so it's actually, you think I don't want to do it, but actually it's the most liberating thing because then you don't have to go around the rest of your life thinking, oh, I never did that. It's done, it's over. So
these are wonderful tools. I love it.
Yeah.
I want to comment on 2 things. One is about daily questions and another is about doing things you don't like. Marshall Goldsmith, one of my mentors in coaching, he actually teaches these daily questions and he has a woman calling him every single day and asking him 32 questions every single day. He pays her for this and he, I mean, like 95% he replies yes, because he is disciplining himself. It has to do with all areas of his life. But then his daughter, who became a marketing expert, she graduated from Yale, his daughter, Kelly, I also had an exchange with her on email, very nice person. So she improved father's questions. She said, we need to have active questions, not only questions, active questions. Active. Can you hear me?
As opposed to
these questions that you mentioned,
active.
Ordinary questions. So, did you do your best? Chant your japa attentively? Yes. No, sorry. Did you chant your japa? Yes. Did you chant your japa attentively? Yes. But her questions start with, did you do your best, or have you done your best to do this and this and that? So this is even more demanding, more demanding question. Yeah. So this is something that can be used with these daily questions. And then Brian Tracy, a famous motivational speaker and success teacher, he has 2 books. One is called Eat That Frog, and another is called Kiss That Frog. And he also wrote this 2nd book with his daughter, who I think she introduced this positive approach to frogs. And frog is a difficult task that you will procrastinate. Something you don't like to do. So if you do the first thing in the morning, you do the thing that you will delay, then you are a winner already for the day. But I haven't read Kiss That Frog. I know that Eat That Frog is about overcoming procrastination. But Kiss That Frog, I haven't read it, but it seems that it's about how to like the task you don't like. So
Especially in devotional service, if you don't like to do something, you do it for Krishna. There's a special satisfaction in
right,
giving up some self-interest.
yeah.
So,
There's amazing things, and you know, people, these self-help people, they have so many things, and we criticize them sometimes. But actually, we can use all these things in Krishna's service on the principle of Yukta Vairagya, and sometimes they will also get benefit because they're teaching us these things, and we can give them prasadam. And like Marshall Goldsmith came to Soho, and he even met Mahaduti Maharaj, and he was coaching me in front of him, and I lost like 200 pounds because I was saying but. But he took dal, he took rice. He wanted to bring me to a lunch in a hotel, but I declined. And we had a very nice chat. He visited also LA Temple. So all these self-help teachers, instead of criticizing them, we can actually have a friendship with them and exchange gifts, exchange books, and give them prashadam.
yeah, well, you know, sometimes devotees wonder about all the self-help and why would we need it or use it? But a lot of what they're doing is just working with the natural psychological laws of the mind. But they may be misapplying it for material goals, and we can apply it for spiritual goals. So in many cases, it's not like bad in and of itself. It's just bad how they use it, but they're just working. This is how this will achieve this result. You think that will get another result. Those are very simple principles, but sometimes we don't know those principles. We never learn them, and once we learn them, we say, "Oh, this can help me a lot, and I can apply it in Krishna's service." So, if it helps your service, it's not sinful. It's not against anything in Bhagavatam, and in many cases, it's just a kind of a systematizing of what's in our books. It's just, you know, because they bring in systems. Bhagavatam is not bringing in systems; it's principles, and we have to create systems from the principles, and that's, I think, the teacher. So that's what Akura and I were doing a lot, is creating systems from things we learned that were actually in our books, but other people were teaching, and they didn't even know they were in the books, and then combining them in a Krishna conscious way. And we've seen amazing results because we're all, you know, being affected in the material world by the modes of nature, so learning better how to adapt it. And then when you learn these things, then you'll read a lot of Prabhupada's letters, and you'll see he's saying the same thing. It's like traditional wisdom of just how to move forward, right, in the material world to accomplish things, to be positive. And there's one letter I've lectured on many, many times where Prabhupada, he was explaining to a devotee how to deal with the situation. And in that letter, he was explaining like the basic principles of the whole self-development philosophy. It was in that letter.
Oh, can you send me that
like,
letter?
you know, it's like, yeah, it's letter to Madhukar, I believe, 1974. I'll check, but it's amazing.
Oh, I want to see that letter. Srila Prabhupada has amazing tools in his. I sometimes also use letters and use things that he said in letters for coaching devotees, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, because some of these principles, of course, are universal. So it's not the property only of Vaishnavas or Rupa Goswami. These are principles: enthusiasm, first principle, utsahan. So Prabhupada would say, without enthusiasm, you can't achieve anything. Now, if you go on Google and Google the word quotes on enthusiasm, you'll see so many quotes that say, without enthusiasm, you can't achieve anything, because it's true, it's a principle.
Yeah.
And oftentimes Prabhupada is quoted as saying things that he didn't say. He was quoting other people. We just didn't realize he was quoting other people. And he's just saying, this is common sense, this is true, this is the way the world works.
Right.
So, but some of those little points can make huge difference in the life of a person who's not aware of them. And so it's you know, this idea, well, it's, you know, it's not coming from the Vedas per se. You know, there's a whole world of psychology that exists in the Vedas.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily have access to it. And, you know, it also, as I was a Sankirtan leader for many, many years, and I would have to get the devotees to overcome fears, to be enthusiastic, to deal with austerity. And if you went back, you know, when I was like 25 years old, trying to get the Sankirtan devotees enthusiastic, and then listen to a lecture by Tony Robbins, it probably sound the same, although I never heard him. Because it's the same, overcome your fears, you know, be positive. Just imagine the book is already in their hand and giving them money. I would say these things because just, you know, I once, somebody gave me a whole like 30 tapes from Tony Robbins of his whole thing, like, you know, he did 30 years ago. So I was listening to one of them, and he was saying, you know, like positive visualization. He was saying so many things, and I started laughing. I said, I learned all this stuff on Sankirtan. It's like, if I didn't do this, I would have been run over by everyone on the street, you know. So you had to be positive, determined, focused, visualize this person's going to, you know, take the, you know, it was funny. So it was funny to realize that as a Sankirtan leader, I was actually teaching the same thing because it's just the way the world works. And
Right.
they've systematized it. They put it into books and became fabulously wealthy by developing it and teaching it in a way that it can be practically applied in every situation. So
It's called
I think
organized common sense.
organized common sense, yeah, that's our job.
I would like to share some more tools for dealing with the inner dialogue that I've been using and recommending to devotees for years.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Raghunath Das Goswami, they have, Raghunath Das Goswami has a book, Manak Shiksha. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in many of his books and poems, he starts the sentence with, my dear mind.
Yes.
So we have heard about beating the mind with a shoe and with a broomstick. So that's one way to deal with the mind. We have heard about neglecting the mind's chatter. But this is also a way that can work. And for me, it works well. This, I would say, addressing the mind as a person and in a respectful way, even affectionate way. So, my dear mind, please cooperate with me in my efforts to advance. My dear mind, why are you now trying to drag me down? So you address the mind as a person and see what happens. Devotees who try this, and I myself see that we get very good results because the mind slowly becomes a friend by this kind of addressing. Then any kind of negative thought in relation maybe to your wife, your husband, your child, your friend, devotees, if you start thinking about them with my dear, or addressing them in your mind, like my dear Bhakta such and such, or Bhakti such and such, and then start to think about them, then everything changes. So that's one thing.
My dear mind. That's what you're saying? My dear mind. Everything changes.
My dear mind, my dear wife, my dear husband, my dear child. I mean, in the Shastra, we have, yes?
My dear stomach.
Anything you can address with starting with my dear, and everything changes. It's an amazing thing. Then another thing about negative self-talk is excuses, and I have just just published a book, wrote a book about excuses recently. I used my seminar to create this book. It has 9 chapters, and I'm giving different tools how to eliminate excuses and identify excuses. So this is what does it mean to get back on a right track? One answer could be to stop making excuses. So this is something that we can also share with our listeners or viewers. And then another.
So maybe they should write down their excuses.
Yes. Yes, the writing down excuses. I mean, they can see in the book, and I can also have a session with anybody who wants, if they want to deal with their excuses. But this is not for mommy's boys. This is for spiritual warriors.
You're gonna have to face the facts, right?
Yeah.
Akura was not gonna let you. He's not gonna let you make an excuse.
Right.
One time, I think one time I said something to you, and you said something like, "That's just an excuse." And then you said, "If Tony Robbins was sitting in front of you, would you tell him that?" And so I had to think. I said, "No, because I would be caught. I would be. It would be unveiled. I'd be sitting naked as an imposter."
Right.
So that's what you're saying, right? You're going to call them.
Yeah.
You coach them. You call them on their excuses. Okay.
Yeah, we clearly identify them, we highlight them, and we want to eat them up and spit them out.
Well, the thing about the one easy way I've found to overcome excuses is to realize that if you utilize excuses, it makes your life easy, but you fail. So excuses are just an argument for failing, but it's basically excuses are good for lazy people,
Yeah.
or people who live in fear, or people who are negative, because it pacifies them, but you'll fail. So you're arguing for your failure. I want to explain to you why I'm going to fail. The reason I'm going to fail,
Yes.
but you don't really want to fail. And then you suffer more when you fail than the suffering you'd have to go through just by doing what you're saying you can't do. Anyway, we have to do a whole, we could do our whole next session on excuses if you want.
Yes, we can. I have a lot of also, you have a lot of contribute and I have something. So these two words, my dear, are also powerful. We underuse them in addressing the mind, and we underuse them in addressing the Lord. So we can use more often, mighty Lord, please help me. Mighty Lord, how can I? It sounds very simple and we all know it, but we don't use it. But if you use it, we will see how powerful it is if you actually pray to the Lord, if you ask Him for help. And to me, people say that the Bhagavad Gita starts with Dehinosmini Atyadehe, Bhagavad Gita 2:13. I disagree. Bhagavad Gita starts with 2:7. Shishyaste ham shadimam tvam prapanam. Such a powerful person as Arjuna is admitting that he needs help. I mean, it's a shame. When you admit you need help, for a powerful person, it's a shame. But he is admitting that he needs help. For what to speak of us, we have to admit that we need help and we cannot make it alone. And therefore, if we have a success partner, if we take a general instruction of our spiritual master and work on it with our success partner, then, we can do amazing things. We stop just procrastinating, stop sabotaging ourselves. So, and Krishna is just waiting to help us. So if we address him as a person, mighty Lord, please help me. I want to serve you better.
Okay, what I think, I've got two ideas now. I think we should do a whole show on this success partnership, and then we can get it out exactly as it works, and then it'll be recorded for everyone to look at and say, this is how you do it. I think that would be super important. Rather than just reading it, because more people are watching videos than reading. And this, and then we can do one on excuses, and then after those two, we'll see what comes out of that. I think we can do more also on our relationship with ourselves, other ways, like there's other ways we deal with ourselves, like lying to ourselves. I did a workshop, a very, very deep workshop, and the guy who developed it was a deep thinker. He's like just mind-blowing. So he asked the question, what do you lie to yourself about that you lie to yourself about? In other words, you're lying to yourself, but you won't admit it. So you're lying to yourself that you don't lie to yourself. So what do you lie to yourself about how you lie to yourself? Things like that, I never thought of that, very deep. What am I lying? And then what am I afraid to admit that I'm lying to myself about? It's very, very deep, these deep levels of fear. Very important to confront them, and it can help us a lot. And I think one of the problems that I have personally is I've studied this quite deeply, both by doing work on myself and teaching it and also reading many books on it. And when someone is not genuine, and someone is afraid to face their stuff, when someone is being phony, or someone is conditioned in a way. They don't believe they can change. I can see through it. I've been there. I know what's going on. And it's difficult for me because it's frustrating because, we have to be the best we can for Prabhupada. And when people say, this is just the way I am, I can't change, or don't even want to acknowledge that this is the way they are, it's not good enough for what we have to do as a movement, because there are people out there aside from devotees who will admit, this is how I am, and they'll do the work to improve themselves. And if we as devotees won't even acknowledge where we need to work, or acknowledge it but won't do anything, we're failing Prabhupada. So I think this is an important area, and a lot of us have not gone into this self-discovery area. We say self-discovery. It's I'm not the body, I'm soul. But all the subtle layers of conditioning, it's very important to go into, and it can make a huge difference in terms of our effect on the world, our relationships, the culture we create, and so forth.
So what I was looking for in this conversation is to learn a lot of new perspectives and new tools from you, and this is happening. I'm very grateful to you for this. Wonderful. And because this is recorded, I can go through it again and write things down and use it in supporting devotees. So I want to thank you for this. I want to say one more thing about one more tool. It's called inquiry mindset. If we look at our inner dialogue, it's often consisted of questions and answers. So if we change the questions we ask ourselves, then the quality of our thinking can change and can improve. And for example, probably most of the internal dialogue is based on the wrong questions we ask. Like, for example, if you see something, I give this example in my seminars, like you see a piece of paper on the street, and then so how do you react to this? So you may ask yourself, okay, where is the public cleaning service, or what is the mayor doing? He's just spacing out, mayor of the city, or why nobody is cleaning this? So you can ask yourself these questions, and then another question that is more powerful or more spiritual, or like a question that comes from higher consciousness is, what can I do to make our city cleaner? So, well, I can pick it up and throw it in the garbage. So always,
It's kind of like stupid questions, stupid answers. Asking stupid questions. Why didn't anybody clean this up? And the answer you get is the dirty street is.
So I teach people success questions, excellent questions. I have a course called Excellent Questions for Excellent Life. And I'm preparing ebook on this also. And when you change your questions, actually your life can change. And your inner dialogue can change.
So where do we get all your books?
Well, just send me a message. I will send them to you.
You want to, Nadine can put them into a digital format, and then they can be available on Amazon.
Yeah, I have them, but they need some layout or something.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll end here. That was about an hour and a half. And we'll be doing these every week, or releasing these every week. And there was some technical difficulties, so we didn't have anybody watching this. But I think it's actually maybe better, because we had a train of thought, and we would have got sidetracked if there were comments and questions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe what we'll do in the future is we'll just have one session for questions, and we'll have it live. And people can go back to everything. But this was more focused. And this is how we did the reality check originally. So I guess we have to come up with a name for this series. You have a name for it? Reality check part 2 or something?
No, something new. We will discuss it. Yeah, something. We have to get something new.
We'll come up with a name, and then that name will be put on the title. Okay, thank you all for watching. So you're going to save this recording, right?
Yes, and I will send it to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Nice seeing you. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai.
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari.
Hari Bol.